6. Our main news, though, is about the time running out to rescue the submersible. Rescuers say, however, they have not given up hope of saving the 5 on board. Even though their oxygen supply is due to run out, they've got around 6 hours left.
Yeah, the frantic search has intensified overnight with more ships and aircraft joining this huge operation. Our North American correspondent Noel Phillips is in Boston for us this morning. Morning, Noel. So the authorities insisting that despite the fact Susanna says the oxygen is fast running out, it is still a search and rescue operation.
That's right, and let's just talk about that specific area in the Atlantic where they're focusing their efforts. It is incredibly deep. It is the equivalent of stacking London's tallest building, the Shard, on top of each other 11 times. I think the next couple of hours are going to be breathtaking as we enter the final stage of this critical operation. And we also understand, as of right now, a French ship is also due to arrive anytime. That ship has on it a deep-sea robot with arms and also cameras, and has the potential to go all the way down to the ocean bed and potentially, if it sees the vessel, to free it if it is indeed stuck in the wreckage of the Titanic. The hope of finding this missing submersible and its 5 passengers alive is fast evaporating. And it gets even more dire as oxygen inside the vessel is now desperately low. From deep below the sea to the skies, the rescue operation is unprecedented. This Canadian patrol team are among many scouring the area, listening for sounds which have been heard from where the capsule was last seen.
The people listening to these tapes are trained. There are a lot of vessels in the area and they each make noise, right? So all of that has to be eliminated.
More than a dozen ships and submersibles like this, as well as a robot that can dive over 19,000 feet, are now attempting to find the 5 men who went missing on Sunday. With all odds against them and time quickly running out, at this stage, the Coast Guard are hoping they can pull off a miracle. I asked the captain coordinating the search what more help he needs in these final hours.
We asked for some additional subsurface support, and we got that through the Navy, and we're greatly appreciative of the British government and all the support they've given us.
The company that owns the boat that brought the missing sub out to sea say they're not giving up.
There's still life support available on the submersible, and we'll continue to hold out hope until the very end.
But what is now painfully clear is the search for lives in these waters may very well soon become a search for answers. Noel Phillips, Good Morning Britain, Boston.
We're joined by deep sea explorer Dr. David Gallo, who's a close friend of the Titanic sub's pilot, Paul-Henri Nargeolet. Good morning to you, Dr. David Gallo.
Good morning,
Thank
Ben.
you for joining us this morning.
Morning.
I mean, the Coast Guard are
My
insisting
pleasure.
it is still a search and rescue mission. I mean, you have far more experience of these things than we do. How much hope are you holding on to that the sub is still intact and the 5 people on board could be rescued?
Much hope. And maybe 2 days ago, my hope was sliding downward rapidly, but then these noises appeared, and there seem to be very credible. The sources are certainly credible and repeatable, so we'll see how that pans out. But everything's happening very quickly, so we have a race against time, and our hopes are high. And, you know, we need a miracle at this point, but miracles do happen, so I'm very optimistic. Have to be.
Yeah, Dr. Gallo, can you just tell us what you know about the noises when they were last heard, how you would be able to distinguish that they're human beings in a sub banging on the side, or whether there are other noises that you might get from the depths?
Yes, I was involved peripherally in the Malaysian air search, and in Air France 447 was a co-leader of that expedition, was successful. In both cases, we had these phantom noises that we could be certain were coming from the black boxes of the aircraft, and they weren't. And maybe with the Malaysian Air, there may have been 3 or 4 incidences of that. In this case, the noises are repetitive every half hour, I believe. 3 different aircraft heard them in their sensors at the same time, and it went on for 2 days plus. So it's still going on, apparently. That would lead to be something. There's not much that we can think of in the natural world that would do that. That would every 30 minutes or so that would have that kind of a cycle. So we have to at this point assume that that's the submarine and move quickly to that spot, locate it, and then get robots down there to verify that that's where the submarine is. But they've got to go fully ready as if that was the sub. Because it takes a while once you locate it to get it up to the surface. It takes hours to do that.
You see, this is the brutal reality, isn't it, Dr. Gallo, that we understand they have around 6 hours of oxygen left. It takes a couple of hours to get down to the sub. They haven't located it yet. And that it's going to take a couple of hours to bring the sub back, which would only leave them a tiny window of opportunity to actually get a hold of the sub. And that is, you know, taking into account we're running out of time to even find it. But you are maintaining hope despite the fading of that oxygen.
I did say miracles. We need a miracle here. And there's some debate about how much oxygen there really is, how much it would really consume. So we don't know the answer to that. But you're right. Mathematically, we're getting very close to a time where we have to realize that chances of survival are slim. But again, we won't know how. It is difficult to go from here to locating and retrieving an object at the bottom of the sea, especially if it's caught by cables and wrapped around it and all of that. It's difficult, but they've got the right team out there. They've got the best team you can imagine with the best equipment and the right plan. So we'll see what happens. The only thing, the best person to have on the job would be P.H. Nargile. And unfortunately, he's not on this side of the equation with me. He's on that side of the equation, which makes this a very, very bitter to have it go this way.
Dr. Gallo, tell us, I mean, you've been friends with him for a number of years. You started off as sort of on the opposite sides of debate as to whether people should be diving down to the Titanic and retrieving various bits and pieces. And now you've become very close friends. What's he like? How will he be coping in this scenario?
He is, and I mean this literally, as comfortable on the deck of a ship in a roaring hurricane with waves crashing over the deck. He's as comfortable there as he is sitting in a Parisian cafe. He's incredibly kind, giving. It's not just me that has this attachment to him. Hundreds of people adore this man, and extremely competent and unflappable. So if he were in a difficult situation, I've been there with him in difficult situation. He is a flat line calm and works it out, where my Italianism, I'm bouncing all over the place. So pretty remarkable guy. And I think it sounds odd, but if I was going to be stuck in a submarine with someone, it would be P.H. Nargile for sure.
Did you talk to him about this mission before he left?
I did. In fact, I talked to him while he was on the mission. And, I questioned about the submarine. I think he had several dives in that submarine. And I have three friends that are all very knowledgeable about undersea technology. All three of them, including PH, said this is very safe. And I'm not an engineer, so to me, it looks worrisome. But when he says that, I have to take it with some credibility that he's telling the truth. Why else? It's not like him to be to stretch the truth. So he thought it was safe. The owner and founder of that company was on the sub as well. So he put his, as they say, money where his mouth is. Yeah. He was out there too. So there must have been a real feeling that this sub was pretty safe.
I think there's been some criticism and concern about the protocols in place should something like this arise. I mean, hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? But I know it was something that you were worried about, wasn't it? That if something goes wrong in this sort of scenario, how are you going to ensure that people can be retrieved safely?
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, anyone in the deep submergence, deep water exploration game wonders what it would be like if we have a submarine caught or the submarine implodes. What do you do? And we've never taken the time to, in 30, 40 years that I've been around, to come up with a list of protocols. And by that, I mean, releasing a buoy from a surface ship, the support ship, so it can track currents. Because one of the things you'll hear them say, we searched a huge area the size of the eastern United States. Well, if you had a buoy that was released, you could find where the currents were going. You wouldn't have to guess. That kind of thing. Who do you call? Step by step. And I think they waited 6 hours or something like that before they notified anybody. So it's that kind of thing I think we should have nailed down. It's something human about that, because even with the Air France and Malaysian Air, I don't think we learned our lessons. We said we did, that this would never happen again. And yet we have, I don't think anything's been implemented to make things different next time. It's going to happen again. And in fact, with the submarine, we knew this was going to happen sometime. It's undoubtedly going to happen again at some point. One thing I can say is there will be an awful lot of meetings and the like, looking at this issue and what happened here and what could have been done differently. Hopefully, out of those meetings will come something like a protocol about what to do.
I mean, you would have imagined that would be something that they would have sorted
planned
before,
meticulously.
Yeah, before they went down. Look, it sounds to me, Dr. David Gallo, like you did have those conversations about safety. You were worried about this sub. When was the last time that you talked to Paul Henry, your friend? Because you must have been concerned about him.
No, because I know him, and I believed when he said, look, it's very safe. And I had talked to him, I think this is his third time he'd been out with the sub. I've talked to him each time about that. And each time he convinced me that it was fine. This time, there was some delay that they had. It had nothing to do with the submarine, but I said, what are you doing? You're supposed to be out there. He said, we just have some issues we're trying to work out, but we'll be out there soon. That was a few days ago, maybe last week. So again, he's very calm, but very, very astute. And these are the kinds of things he lives for, that kind of technology. So again, I had to, when he said it was safe, had to believe that it was safe.
And just before we let you go, there has been a lot of debate, particularly amongst our viewers who've been getting in touch, to say the Titanic is like a graveyard and it should be left undisturbed. Now, I know that was a debate that you had, didn't you, with your friend, because that was originally your view, that you shouldn't disturb the wreck. What changed your mind?
I was hired here by Dr. Robert Ballard right after he found Titanic. And I was with him when we heard, Bob said right away, this should be left as a memorial untouched. And then we heard that there was a French team with American backing collecting artifacts from the site. And in that mess was Paul Henry Nargeolet. So right away we said, they're robbing the grave. And that was something I echoed time and time, many, many times. Well, as time went on, I started to see and listen to what Nargeolet PH had to say. And they never sold the artifacts. In fact, they put them on exhibit. And for the longest time, it was frowned on if one of us would go in to see this Titanic exhibit, one from Woods Hole. And one day, two of us did go. And I was amazed because I saw young and old families and individuals, wealthy, affluent, and not so affluent, walk through that door and gasp at what they saw, that they were looking at a piece of the Titanic. They were having that kind of experience, an emotional experience with the ship itself. They weren't watching it on TV. They weren't reading it in a book. They were there. And so that was their experience. And then I started to think that I had been promoting all these years this elitist attitude that if we have a PhD, it's fine. If we don't have a PhD, it's grave robbing. Truth is, there has been no sign of human remains there ever, never, never. Other truth is that the company I work with is the same company that did, well, it's the same title that recovered the artifacts, but it's a totally different company. They should have probably changed the name. And in my 10 years that I've been there, 12 years, they have never once talked about, let's go out there and pick up bags of gold, which are there, jewelry, which is there. Never done that. It took a while for me to understand that what Paul PH had to say was probably, I totally support that idea. Titanic belongs to the people. Behind me, you see that's a Lego model. It's 9,000 pieces. It's very expensive, and they can't keep it in stock because so many people around the world are buying it.
Yeah.
Titanic has a huge global following, and I think it's our job, my company's job, to honor the legacy of the ship and the people that sailed on it. They do more for that than anybody else. So, it's so then PH and I have been tight ever since. And, I love the guy. I love the way he is. So it's great. I learned a lot from him.
It's a very emotive piece of history, isn't it? We're all sort of connected in some capacity. We're going to have to leave it there. But Dr. David Gallo, obviously we're holding on to hope, like you, that your friend and the others on that submersible can be recovered and sooner rather than later. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Dr. David Gallo, thanks very much indeed.